Hello, welcome to the Sovereign Magazine Show, a transformational experience where conscious conversations meet embodied wisdom. Each episode invites visionary healers, thought leaders, and change makers to share their journeys of awakening, offering listeners practical tools and soul stirring insights to reclaim their inner authority. We have the gorgeous Efrat Shokef back today for our show, The Spiritually Aware Parent. She is an expert in spiritually aware families. And today we're going to be talking about the parent-child soul agreement. So welcome back, Efrat. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and share a little bit more about what we're going to be talking about today?
Hi, Nicole. Always so great to have these conversations with you and dive deep into various topics. Um, I'm Efrat Choukaef. I'm author of two award-winning books, The Promise We Made and Universal Promises. Those actually talk about our topic today, about parent-child soul agreements, focusing on the universal pieces. I'm a shamanic energy healing practitioner. I work with families worldwide, a writer, a friend, and a mom to spiritually aware teens, among other things in my life today. So, yes, this is
Yes.
me.
And I have personally worked with Fred and still am, and she's absolutely amazing. So if you do want to work with her, all her details will be in the show notes. So don't be afraid. You'll always be able to find her. Okay, so what are these parent-child soul agreements that we have?
So, I think a lot of conversations take place about soul agreements and soul contracts and soul promises. And maybe the first piece we should weave in is ask ourselves, what is a contract? What is an agreement? And what is a promise? Because when we are talking about the relationship of the soul relationship between children and parents, we are not talking about a contract that can be negotiated. We're not talking about an agreement that could possibly shift and change. We are talking about deep, profound promises. Promises, well, in my vibe of a promise, I expect people to fulfill their promises. And I expect myself to fulfill promises I make. To the very literal details, if I promise my neighbors I would water their plants when they're gone, I would do that. If I say I'm going to show up on time, so maybe that time will be 10 minutes early, 10 minutes later. I think we always arrive at the right time, but it's a promise. It's a very, very deep commitment. I find it important to distinguish between our personal expectations from one another as parents and children and universal ones, universal promises. I see this distinction because you have your agreements with your daughter. I have my agreements with each of my daughters, and have identical twins, and the agreements with each of the identical twins are also unique and different. They expect us to create conditions that will nourish their journey, that will create those situations, those learnings, those invitations, that it would allow them to experience whatever they wanted to experience in where we live in the world, in our dynamics, our characteristics, our personality. It's all those little details, details of resolution between parents and children, a soul choosing to come to a specific family line in order to help that one parent or both parents to resolve something between those two souls, or to resolve the whole or heal the whole family line. And I want to note something really important here before I jump into the difference between personal and universal. We always need to remember that each soul chooses at least its two biological parents. And then we have additional parents that are often a soul's choice. But what is important here is more than acknowledging those souls we add as our choice, which sometimes we are choosing the grandparents, as part of our soul journey. Sometimes we're not. We're always choosing both parents. And this is really important for single parents because sometimes life leads a parent to be raising their children alone. Often these are challenging circumstances, not only sometimes also a personal choice, but that soul, for a reason, chose another parent. And we always need to remember that in the personal agreements. Maybe Annie, add in your thoughts before I jump into universal.
Oh, no, no, it's okay. You can keep going.
Okay. Um, I always like what you add in, so.
Oh, well, what I have to say will come after because it's going to be a question. So, and I think we
Okay.
should define the universal before the question that I have.
Okay, so when we talk about universal, my experience is that there are various foundations that any being, and I would not just any soul or a wise soul or a soul that has experienced Earth for many times, any being coming to Earth expects. And those foundations take us through a journey of all those pieces that need to be anchored for us to fully fulfill our soul's journey. These are not different. They're more of a quality and a process and a journey. And these do not differ for you and me living in different continents, different cultural environments, different places, different families. These come as foundations that are the on which the personal promises, the personal agreements and expectations build upon. In my journey, I've defined 9 such universal promises, taking us as an anchor from the basics of anchoring into our physical body and all the way into raising and giving our children all those needed conditions for them to grow and be ethical co-creators. And when we look about everything that is happening in the world and the big question of what kind of future are we preparing our kids for? We have no idea how their future is going to be. Our reality now is not as it was 5 years ago when we birthed them, again, age depending. So what are those foundations that will help them be who they are, walk their paths, stay centered with their beauty, not get confused in this very, very confusing and chaotic world? So I can go into these 9, or we'll have another meeting, another time when we go into all of these 9. But these are the contracts, and these, and in general, it's a mutual process. Because just as we made promises to our children come with a promise to us to push our buttons, to help us realign, to trigger us as best as they can, so that and triggers go and escalate as if we do not respond in the earlier invitations. And it's a mutual promise, again, to realign to our truth. So those agreements, when we talk about soul agreements, it's not just about the literal. It's about the journey, the shared journey, and how we proceed and go with it. And there
Okay.
are additional layers, but yeah, I'm curious to your question.
You're gonna laugh because I know that everybody is probably thinking about something similar to what I'm thinking about, maybe not in the exact way. But how do we know what our soul contract and universal contract is if we don't have it on paper? How do we figure that out?
We're not supposed to figure it out.
Okay.
We're not, and this is a really important question, actually,
Yeah.
because when people track, and we can go into the Akashic records, we can go into past lives, we can go into our books. There's so many ways in which using methods like I use as a shamanic energy healing practitioners and other using amazing methods can tap into the energetic field, the shared energetic field, on its various layers and hubs of information, let's call it, and look what those agreements are. But when we tap to them, we usually tap into past agreements, something that's set in the past. something that defines the relationship. Now, sometimes in healing processes, you have to go into those places and unweave those pieces or understand what is the big gift or the significant gift that that piece gave us, embody it so we can let that contract or invitation or repeated patterns to and let them go. But when we are looking, there are ways to tap into the future. I usually feel that it again anchors us to a specific future that we tap into. And we want to keep our possibilities as wide and as expansive and as extraordinary as possible. The way is to be you. It's not about knowing what the contracts are. It's about doing everything you can to walk who you are in essence, because our children choose our potential. I say that often. They choose our potential. They choose our essence. So if your daughter chose your essence, as the more you walk who you can truly be and who you truly are, you are naturally living your life and creating the conditions in your interaction, the conditions that she needed. The more I walk who I am, the more I am creating conditions for my three daughters. The more I'm responsive to their invitations, to their quests, to their growth. Again, as invitations to me, as invitation for us as a whole family, I am again creating those conditions that they needed. We don't have to know everything.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a lot about being in the now. What do I need to do now to be more of who I am? And we are all more than our physical limited challenged human. Okay, so what do I need to bring that forth?
Yeah.
What do I need to express? What do I need to do? What do I need? When do I need to just nourish myself and be a human that enjoys nature, and that's it? And all those pieces and all those challenges that we face and that they invite us to face, because they again offer triggers. It's good. It's a process of becoming.
Yeah.
Often we need to heal a lot on the way. We need to unweave a lot of pieces. And we're living in times where there is this vast invitation to heal everything you can, everything. So the more we walk that healing journey, the more we walk who we are, the more we create the conditions, the more soul agreements, soul promises, soul expectations, soul contracts we will be fulfilling merely by being aligned to the moment.
Yeah. This resonates so much because I often feel as though my daughter is the one pushing me to live more as my authentic self through her, I wouldn't say expectation, but her shared understanding that I'm going to model for her um, what her soul needs. And like she is so incredibly complex, but I feel like my
As all children are today.
Mhm, mhm. A lot more than I anticipated as a parent. I felt when I first had her that she was here to help me heal my past. That's what I thought, which is part of it, right? I remember holding her when I was 6 months old, going, how could my mother have given me up? And all of these things, right? I'm looking at my beautiful baby going, there's just no way I could give my daughter away. However, I have since healed that. She's come through in a session and she was like, I didn't know any better. I was abandoned as well as what my biological mother had said. And so that was it. She was able to, I was able to get forgiveness through her coming through. However, when now that my daughter is 14, the questions she asks or doesn't ask are so thought-provoking and spiritually awakening. I feel like I have no choice but to do the work because since we do have these contracts together, and you said there is no manual, it's just a felt sense. my husband has always said to her, "You have been my greatest lesson. I wouldn't be the person I am today had I not become your dad." And I really feel like that is the truth. Like, I feel like I have become a better person because I am a mother and because I am her mother. Who knows what would have happened if I had other children, but because I am her, and she has pushed me outside my comfort zone more than anybody else in this entire world on so many occasions. And I wonder how the resistance that people might feel around their parent-child relationship, especially if they grew up in a household where it was very maybe authoritarian or silencing children, or, the whole saying that says, you're seen and not heard, and children don't have a chance to express themselves. I love when my daughter shares what she's thinking and feeling, if she gives me that privilege, because sometimes she's pretty quiet. But when we have those challenging relationships where one person, and maybe it's the child who is more closed down, how do we handle our soul contracts when we might not have a shared language? Like her and I have a shared language because we've been working on it for so long. But if somebody's new to all of this, how do they foster this relationship and mutual dance, if you will?
I think my first invitation is to adopt a non-judgmental approach to ourselves. We do not know, most of us do not know whether we chose families that was very challenging for us in one aspect or another, because we wanted to come to that family line and it had other benefits. We wanted to bring and offer the healing, or because we chose a potential that was never able to express itself because our parents were so wounded and stuck in their woundedness, and grew up in different times, didn't have the possibilities or the awareness that so many of us have today. So it doesn't matter what family you come from, you don't know how much, we don't know how much, again, we can tap into it. I find it more limiting than expanding to tap into those pieces and stories. We make a story out of it instead of just taking what we need and letting go of the rest. But then when one family member chooses to heal, so if that parent understanding that they want to improve the relationship, they want to have a better environment to grow their kids, they want to offer something that possibly because they did not receive it as kids themselves, or maybe because suddenly when their kids are 10-year-olds or 12, or even adult children not living in the house, something clicks for them, and now they are ready to step forward. At that moment you are ready to step forward, start doing what you can to heal. And there are so many beautiful modalities today available for us to heal, not just at the shallow layers, but really deep within, from our soul. As one person in a family heals, healing ripples. Healing ripples. And part of healing is healing your past relationships. So even if it's an adult child, you go back and you heal what you can. There are methods to go back and change the energetics of what happened. You don't change the literal of what happened, but you change the energetics. And something new opens up. So even if some wounding or baggage has been created, it can be resolved, it can be changed. And even if your kid is not speaking to you or doesn't trust you, as you do the healing and you're committed and consistent to healing yourselves and anything on your family lines and anything that can be spilled into their tables, it affects them. it affects
Yeah.
them, and something can open up.
It's very,
So
very
it's
true.
never too late, and it's a lot of small choices again and again to heal. And I know healing is not easy. You need to look at the mirror and agree to see everything there is to see. But as you go through it, and we both know these processes, and you go through it, and your breath expands, and your relationships improve. And all those by the books, teenagers need to resist, you need to have conflict, you suddenly see that, well, that's not a must. That's a description of what is happening in a lot of confused families, raising the kids in a confused society, in a confused world. It's not our natural ways of humans.
Yeah, very true. My daughter's 14 and a half, and I'm not really getting the teenager thing. I mean, there's little bits of it here and there, but she's she has her moments, but we all do, right? And I
Yes.
remember this distinct time. So I started on my healing journey when I was 40. So she was, let's see, about 8. And I remember maybe 6 months to a year, and she said, I want my old mommy back.
Because she got used to it.
Uh-huh. She got used to the old way, but my old way was burned out, right? But the new way was speaking my truth and setting a little bit more boundaries and things like that. So, how do we honor her soul contract, right? When we need to set boundaries, right? One of the things that I'm struggling with right now with her is she's going to be going to high school and she keeps asking for more things. We don't do social media in our house, and she's asking for more, more and more and more and more. And so how do we approach all those things and then also honor their experience and knowing who they are will still be there despite our choices.
The literal will be very different for each family. And the boundaries will also be different. And I would say it's a dance.
Mhm.
You give some, and you place your boundary. It's like you need to choose your battles. There's a saying, choose, but those choices should be not based on social expectations, what others have or don't have. They should be based on conversations, reflections of why something is important, and making sure that our kids' choices are in awareness. So it's okay for a teen to consciously choose that being social is important for them, and being social may also include some pieces that they don't like or disagree, as long as it doesn't cross their own boundaries, personal boundaries. But even, being in WhatsApp, or I don't even know what's popular today. Because again, we don't do many other than for work, social media or stuff. But that may be okay. Now I want to belong to that, and
Mhm.
that's where okay. But so we do that in awareness. We do that with a choice and understanding that this is a choice to belong in a certain way that does not define belonging.
Yeah.
If we have a solid, good communication with our kids from early on, this is why it's so important to start as young as they are, then these conversations can take place.
Yeah.
These conversations can take place. And um, a lot of attentiveness. And what I'm noticing with a lot of teens I worked with over the years, young adults by now, amazing young adults, sometimes they get confused for a while and they step away. They step away from working with me. Their parents are more, report more struggles. But as the foundational pieces of mutual respect, conversation, understanding what is important have been set, it's easier for them to return to it.
Yeah.
So again, it returns to setting foundations and doing what we can, not expecting them to change, work, heal. There's so much we can do as parents for them. And that's where it starts.
It's so true. In our house, we don't say no or yes. We say we'll talk about it because we want to let her know that everything is open for discussion. We process everything from top to bottom. So I don't know, maybe 6 months ago, she wanted Pinterest. And I said, okay, well, let me open up an account because I don't have Pinterest and I will open it up under your email, but I'll keep the password and so on and so forth. And I'll record the first feed. We'll put in what you like, so on and so forth. And then I did that. So her favorite things are like inspirational quotes and dogs and drawing, right? So that's what I put into it. And her algorithm, her very first one, was all of these what your room should look like, how you should dress, nails, all the things that we didn't say. The third image was the proper and improper way to put on a corset. And I was appalled. I was very, very appalled. And it's not that you can't shift it and change the algorithm, but it was nothing of what we said or talked about. And so we had a discussion about that. And she was like, I don't want to go on there. So now it's 6 months later and it's resurfacing again. And so we're going to have a discussion. And I said to my husband last night, okay, Pinterest has come back up again. We need to have a discussion. It's not a yes or a no. It's a let's have a conversation because when we include her as part of the process, she often does the deciding for us because she sees what feels most aligned for her or not. She's not over there having a temper tantrum saying, you never let me do such and such, because we've talked about it all. And she usually leaves the thing. And that's how I find it has been more peaceful, as you discussed earlier, when you live as your authentic self and allow them to as well. We have so much peace in our house. We don't fight, we don't yell. I mean, we have disagreements sometimes, but it's just a calm sense. And people say to us and Kieran, how did you get to be like this? And it's not that we're right and they're wrong. It's just different. We notice how different we are. And before I met you, I told you, I was like, I didn't have a word to describe what we do. We just do what we do. And now that I have some shared language around it, people want to come to our house because it is calm, it is peaceful, or they go to Kieran and ask her for advice because she thinks so differently. And so, as we start to wrap this up, what would be your one recommendation for people who are wanting to embrace their soul's contract with their child and move throughout their day in a more intentional way?
I believe our next episode is going to be much about that. um, as I said earlier, adopt a self non-judgmental approach, a lot of self-compassion, but also an active approach to healing. Start asking yourself, what do I need to do? What do I need to heal? And healing sessions can also be about, at least in my line of work, we can work through you, about your child, about your relationship. So there's a lot of unweaving as we weave this past density, as we unweave yesterday's density. We can breathe and walk into an expanding relationship, calm relationship, communicative relationships. So it is possible, and it's about really just making the choice and being brave. And you are brave. You are brave, not just you, Nicole. Anyone who's listening to us, you can heal what needs to be healed. Find the modality and the people that work for you,
Yeah,
but
and
do
it's never
take
too late.
responsibility. It's never too late.
Yeah. It's never too late. Okay, beautiful. Well, if you have been enjoying this conversation, definitely like, share, subscribe, comment below. It helps us in the algorithm reach more people. And we are going to be talking about daily invitations from mundane reactions to a shared journey of growth on our next one. So definitely stick around. Thank you so much for being here.